Good evening, Royals fans. Welcome into the Queen Sports Network, coming to you live from JJ's Red Hots here in Charlotte on East Boulevard, affectionately known as Queens Boulevard. Glad to have you along with us here on this Tuesday evening for yet another Queens Coach's Corner, second installment, as we come to you live here from JJ's. A little bit on the inside tonight. We thought about setting up side on the rooftop. Promise you we will be up there eventually, but rain in the forecast, so figured we might have to pull the plug halfway through like we did last week, but what a fun week it was last week. Of course, appreciate you all tuning in for that. And looking to have a little bit more fun here tonight. We got a full slate on hand here this evening as we'll talk all sorts of fall sports coming up. But glad to have you along with us. I'm Mike Glennon, and my co-host Nick Kloss is off tonight, but that's okay. We'll get on without him. It'll be just fine. We got Coach Kist from Field Hockey coming up in just a couple of minutes on the phone. But right now, like I said, we got a full week to talk about. A lot of stuff going on for this Queen's University of Charlotte athletics program here over this past week. A lot of first, and of course with that hashtag Be The First, want to make sure we talk about all of that as we get you caught up on some of the games you might have missed from this past week. Women's soccer, we'll talk to Coach Knoll coming up in just a little while, but they came away with their second straight tie at Morehead State, got their first Division I goal coming off the foot of who else but Nia Gaither, a fantastic goal scorer, one of many, I am sure, here this year, and of course moving forward into the next couple. Men's soccer fell in their ASUN opener to Stetson, but defense looked to have improved. Still searching for those goals. Coach Correa's off tonight. He's getting ready for, of course, that first game at home tomorrow. Don't forget, you can catch that on ESPN+. It'll be our first ESPN Plus broadcast for the Queen Sports Network. That's coming up tomorrow. We'll go live at 7 p.m. right here on the Queen Sports Network over on ESPN+. So make sure you tune in for that. If you haven't subscribed just yet, again, ESPN Plus is indeed a subscribe-based sort of service, so make sure you get that. But we have a lot of fun coming up your way this year on ESPN Plus, so make sure you get locked in. Women's volleyball fell in a trio of matches out at the Mercer tournament. Lost a 3-2 heartbreaker to Charleston Southern. Had the match in hand, just unfortunately couldn't quite close it out. Mercer and Southern missed the other two. They're on the road tonight, so Coach Long is also on the road. Of course, they have their game time coming up at 7. We'll try to update you as much as we can live, but a shout-out to women's volleyball. Of course, we talked about it last week, came away with a historic first win for the Division I program here for Queen's University of Charlotte. And of course, a shout out to them for just going out there and putting it all on the line and taking care of business last week and looking to get back in the driver's seat here tonight on the road at UNC Greensboro. Field hockey fell to Davidson and Georgetown, but continually improving. We'll talk to Coach Kist about that, and had a couple of questions for her, but a lot of young talent on that team, and so there will be some growing pains. We've talked about it with all of these coaching staffs going into this level, what it is and how much of a difference it is, and it's nothing against Division II, but there's just something about Division I and the caliber athletics that indeed come across the screen. So we'll see if they can try to right that ship, but we'll talk to her here coming up in just a minute. We'll also talk to Jake Krolik. He'll be coming on in just a little while. Our cross-country track and field coach opened up with a great weekend at the Catawba Classic as a couple of firsts there as well, which we'll get to in just a moment. Men's rugby ended up coming up with a win this past Saturday, knocking off Wheeling Jesuit in a tight battle at home. They got a big one coming up on Saturday. We'll have them live on ESPN Plus as well. We'll talk to Coach McKinney, but they got Penn State coming to town. So, hey, I don't care what sport it is. Penn State's coming to town. It's going to be a big one. And I know the way that rugby program can bring some folks out, and they like to enjoy themselves on a Saturday morning. That'll be 10 a.m. Saturday. Make sure you stay tuned for that. And then last but certainly not least, women's triathlon kicking off the new year with an absolutely dominant victory at the East Tennessee State University aquathlon. I don't know how you say that. Aquathon. Well, we'll talk to Coach Dyer coming up next week about that. But they had 9 placers, including the top 3, Letitia Martinelli, Franca Henselite, and Sam McKinnis, all coming in. The top 3 was a 500-yard swim and a 2-mile run. And if you're like me, that makes me sweat just thinking about it. But at the same time, a shout out to them. Of course, we've talked about this time and time again, the national championships that have come. Now, in the Division I level, they still have their club sports, but women's triathlon, the only one that's a Division I NCAA sport. So, of course, we'll talk mainly women's triathlon in terms of NCAA, but we will most certainly keep you up to date on what the men do as well, because they are a fantastic group of guys. And so we'll keep you up to date on that as well. They'll be up in Lake Norman up on the 25th of this month, as we'll talk to Coach Dyer about all of that. However, taking a look at some milestones, and of course, that be the first moment of the week. And first off goes to Nia Gaither. Scored the first women's soccer goal in program history at the Division I level. Ended up tying with Moorhead State this past game, and so we'll see if they can break into the win column here coming up this week. They are on the road until the 15th when they'll be back at home against Austin Peay. We'll have that on ESPN+. Sydney Smith, we talked about it, one of those young newcomers for Coach Kiss this season, and she has been stellar, to say the least, and got her first 2 goals of her collegiate career this past Friday, and I would imagine those are 2 of a lot more yet to come. Men's rugby got their first win of the season over Wheeling Jesuit, and of course Royals cross country posting top 3 finishes in the season opener on both the men's and women's side, and then women's triathlon taking care of business in a big time win in their first ever Division I competition. Taking a look at what we got coming up tonight, like we said, we'll talk to Coach McKinney of men's rugby to wrap up the show. Coach Knoll of women's soccer in the house here at JJ's Red Hots. Coach Krolik as well, but we will get you caught up on that. First, we'll talk to Coach Brandy Kist of field hockey, who will be on the phone with us coming up here in just a couple of minutes. We will take a break. We'll be back here live from JJ's Red Hots on Queens Coach's Corner. Right after this, do not go anywhere.
Once royalty carves out its place in history, it becomes an empire. And an empire needs room to grow. People call us an empire. We simply call ourselves Royals. Queens has been committed to excellence in everything we do. Now, we've leveled up. We're faster. We're stronger. We're better than ever. And now, we're ready for a new challenge. Our legacy has expanded. ASUN is now our domain, whether it's away or at home. On the diamond, even when no one is watching. Working, training, coaching. In the moments that define our empire, Royals are Division I.
Back here on the Queen Sports Network, coming to you live from JJ's Red Hots here on this Tuesday night in Charlotte. Glad to have you along with us. Mike Glennon alongside you here for yet another Queens Coach's Corner as we welcome into the program Coach Brandy Kist for the second straight week. This time, though, via the telephone. And Coach Kist, I appreciate you taking some time out here and talking to us via telephone.
Of course, of course.
Well, Coach Kiss, we know I was just talking before we went to the break about this past week for you. Of course, fell in a couple of tough games, but at the same time, you know, I think one thing that I have noticed, at least in the first couple of games, is how much this team is already starting to improve. I realize maybe scoreline's not necessarily where you want them right now, but I have to imagine you're pleased with the kind of progress you've seen just in 3 games so far.
Yeah, we definitely are. You know, we have some specific focus areas for each game that we've had, and we've been hitting some of those and improving some of those kind of measurable things in those focus areas. So, yeah, the score line doesn't quite reflect what we've been working on, but we're taking steps, you know, in the right direction, just becoming better hockey players and having a better just hockey IQ. So we're happy with the growth, and you know, even though you know we are still scoring some goals, which is nice, you know, to see that we are still generating some attack as well.
Sure, absolutely. And, you know, we talked about it a little bit last week as we touched on that Davidson game. You know, we saw some good flashes. One of those newcomers, Sydney Smith, got a pair of goals in that game. You know, you alluded to it just a little bit there, but with this new freshman class coming in and, you know, with the returning 15 that you have, some of them have taken over new roles, which we'll talk more about here in just a minute. But, what kind of measurables did you see in that game, and what have you seen from the freshmen and underclassmen so far here in terms of you're going to have your growing pains, but at the same time, this is a tough level of competition like you told us last week.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing our returners really helping to kind of lead the younger players just in regards to even our team culture and kind of expectations and things. So they've been providing like a real good solid base for our younger players to come in strong, and really fit in and work well together with the rest of the team. So that's been really nice. But seeing just the confidence this freshman class has coming in is really helping to push our returners as well, and just overall like help elevate our pace of game and style of play. So they've complemented the returners well.
Well, you mentioned the word confidence there. Can you talk a little bit more about that in terms of what do you think you can attribute that confidence to? Is it just their style of play, or is it kind of that teamwork that you guys have worked on, of course, in the offseason, now heading into the new year?
I think it's a little bit of everything, as well as just our approach this season. We were the first, in a
Sure.
lot of ways. So they
the good
are
and the bad of that, right?
Yeah, exactly. But they are playing with no fear. They are taking chances, taking risks on the field, and just learning the game. And sometimes those risks don't always pay off, but they learn from those mistakes.
Yeah.
But they're also learning when those risks do pay off, how to continue taking those chances.
Sure. You fell to a tough Georgetown team, and let's be honest, all of your opponents are tough. We talked about that last week, but
Yeah.
Looking at Cassie Mckenzie scoring her first Division I goal, I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. Like I said before, seeing some of these returning players taking on new roles, Gabe Lechner, another one, and then of course now Marley Geppert stepping in as that go-to starting goalkeeper. How are they progressing in those roles? I know Gabe Lechner, of course, has played forward a vast majority. She's switched back and forth between that and midfield, but listed as primarily a midfielder this year. How big is it to have those veterans that are willing to more or less take over whatever role is necessary?
Yeah, it's been great. It's been great. They really have been finding their voice, and Gabe and Ellie are two seniors who have been through a lot.
Sure.
Through their time, and they're really taking their experiences over the years to really just help mentor and lead the rest of the team. So.
Well, and you mentioned Ellie Fitzgerald. Shout out to her. She worked with us a little bit last year in the second semester. So great hard worker off the field. I know she is on the field as well. Looking at what you guys have coming up this weekend, you're at VCU on Friday, then another quick turnaround on Sunday at Liberty. Of course, at least you get to stay in the state of Virginia, I guess. But can you talk a little bit about the adjustments you have to make when playing on such a tight turnaround? I know that's got to be tough, whether you win or lose. How do you manage that as a coach, and how do you get your players to buy in?
Yeah, I mean, a big focus for this season for us is just increasing our team's hockey IQ, just understanding the game and being able to, read film effectively and apply what they see on film, into what we do in practice and on game day.
Yeah.
Which, like you mentioned, yes, we have kind of a quick turnaround with these two games this weekend. So, we will be watching some film, both of ourselves and of our opponents, to really, read the game and prepare for that next game and know what we need to be changing and adjusting. That's a big thing for us this season.
Well, you mentioned watching film and stuff like that. Looking at these two teams and really kind of your schedule up and down, tons and tons of new opponents, obviously now at the Division I level, folks that you've never seen before. So, can you talk a little bit about what you've seen from VCU and Liberty on film and how you think your style of play can help you guys get that win?
Yeah, it's definitely, both of these opponents are definitely going to be even a little bit faster paced than, the games that we've already had.
Sure.
So there are definitely some adjustments we will make going into these two games. But the game of field hockey is the same no matter what level we're playing at. So it's really getting them to increase the speed of the way we play, but also the way we make decisions on the field and how we adjust.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I remember this was, I think, the first broadcast, but first game you guys played. I think one of the things that really popped into my mind was, with this being that first year and with it being such a young team, I know for you there's going to be a lot of experimenting when it comes to lineups, when it comes to, personnel on the field. How much of that do you guys see yourself as a coaching staff doing game in and game out so far? And, is the ultimate goal to try to smooth that out, to find that starting lineup by the end of the year, or is it just kind of whoever's hot at that time?
Yeah, we don't necessarily go into any game, or any week with kind of a set mindset. Here are the only players that are going to play.
Yeah.
It's up to the players to continuously be kind of earning that time, earning that spot on the bench, and when they get their opportunity, or on the field, when they get their opportunity on the field to kind of show what they know and how they can perform, they may get some more time. And we have been pretty fortunate this season, just the way we're running things. We have been getting a lot of players some playing time at varying degrees. So it's also thinking of the future too, and building that experience in for our younger players as well.
Yeah, and I have to imagine, win or lose, that experience that these young players are getting right now has got to be invaluable in terms of, their future with this program.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Coach, like I say, I appreciate you joining us here via phone. And, of course, safe travels up to Virginia coming up this weekend, taking on VCU Liberty. We'll talk more about that and hopefully have you back in the studio with, or I should say at JJ's with us next week, and hopefully bringing home that first W. So there you go.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, Coach, go out and enjoy the rest of your night. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, guys, we're going to take another break here on the Queen's Coach's Corner. Don't go anywhere. JJ's Red Hot's starting to fill up a little bit here. It's dinner time. Hopefully, you guys grab some snacks in of your own. If you want to get out here, make sure you come out here and join us as a part of this initiative to take over East Boulevard. We're going to make this Queens Boulevard. Queens is on a mission to turn this East Boulevard into Queens College Street. JJ's Red Hots, along with Bricks and other locally famous places of business, are located on the soon-to-be Royals Athletics-themed street. Mission is for all visitors, new and old, to cap off an incredible experience of the city of Charlotte with a trip to this prestigious university, journeying our beautiful local community in the process. And is a really cool place to come down and have some food, hang out with us, talk to a couple of coaches, and enjoy your time. We will take a break. We're coming back talking a little cross country here on the program when we get back here on the Queen Sports Network.
Every journey has a starting point. Each student has a moment when talent and passion meet opportunity. At the intersection of challenge and support, self-discovery fuels breakthroughs, and leaders emerge prepared for what's next. I grew up loving music. It possesses this very real, very unique power for connection and healing. And my journey as a music therapist took shape here.
I discovered the pool offered a more level playing field and the chance to push my limits. At Queens, there's so much opportunity, and our potential for greatness accelerates with every step of our collective journey.
I've always had a knack for chemistry, and that talent has magnified since I got here, rippling out in new directions. I'm not afraid to take risks. I believe challenges make us stronger, and innovation only comes when we're willing to lean into the unknown.
I'm still not sure what the future holds, but whatever it is, Queens has prepared me for it.
My professors push me in the classroom and believe in my abilities.
My coaches, professors, all of us, we're one team, one family.
Here, my voice is heard. I'm given the freedom to be myself and charter new opportunities for change.
Here, strength comes from within.
Practice makes perfect.
and curiosity knows no bounds.
I believe Queen's graduates will create a better tomorrow. Where we go next? That's up to us.
Back here live on the Queen's Coaches Corner, coming to you from JJ's Red Hots here on East Boulevard in Charlotte. Glad to have you along with us as we switch gears here and head over to the course, and we'll talk a little cross country. I'm joined now by Queen's head coach of cross country track and field, Jake Krolik. And Jake, thanks so much for joining us.
Glad to be here, Mike.
Well, Jake, looking at this opening weekend, you guys are at the Fleet. Wow, I can't even say it. Fleet Feet. There we go. Invitational up at Catawba College. Men and women both coming in top 3 in terms of how that weekend went. Can you talk a little bit about, I saw one of the quotes you had and was knocking the rust off. And of course, I feel like any first race of the season always going to feel that way. But what stood out to you about the team this weekend?
Yeah, we have a really new team this year. We lost some people with the transition to Division I, so this was a great opportunity to see some new people step up as leaders for us, and to see start out with the guys and see Mitch Cox go out there. He's a guy that had a lot of success for us last track season, my first semester here. He's a guy that really believes in what we're doing and has been really, really good guy for those young guys to circle around. So to see him go out there and really execute the race plan we set out was just a great start for Mitch, and nice and rewarding for him because he's putting a lot of work, a lot more miles than he's used to. So really good to see Mitch get out there and do that, and then see a good crop of young guys like Tom Heel, Zach Freeland, Sam Balboa, a lot of new guys, a lot of new faces that were running their first ever race in the Queen's jersey. It was great to see them go out there and fill in those roles in the top 5. And now our goal is just to see them work together a little better and see that group move up. We're going to also add some more boys into the mix as we go into the next couple meets. But we need those young guys to continue to develop and step up. Whether it's this year or year number 2 or 3 for them, they are the future of our program. So it was great to see them come out and run against a competitive Wingate team and a very improved Catawba team and keep things close the way they did.
Yeah, and like you say, you throw that many new people into the mix, you wonder kind of, I imagine as a head coach trying to figure out kind of where everybody's going to stand. But, of course, Mitch Cox, as you mentioned, second place in that one. Tom Heel came in 8th, another newcomer like you talked about. Then over on the women's side, Katsi Krasta came in 5th, Sarah Watts an 8th place finish, another top 3 finish for you guys. Can you talk a little bit about the women's team and kind of the development you've seen so far?
Yeah, so for Kati, that's her first ever cross-country race. So she never ran track and field until last spring. So she jumped in and scored a couple points for us at the conference meet right away with no expectations coming in. Same deal right now. And she's out there running as our top girl before we add in some of our girls that are also on the triathlon team. They'll be joining us when we go to Alabama for the first time. We got 3 or 4 girls that'll probably step up and be our 1 through 4 girls that we'll add to the mix next time. But for those girls, kind of being counted on for the first time in their career, like Sarah Watts never made the top 7 last year, running as our number 2. It's a great confidence booster to be the ones that we're counting on and to be put in those situations that to see them execute. So great to see Kati doing that. Great to see Sarah, Maddie Webster, Anna Janke up there. If we can continue like the same thing with that young group of guys, get them to work together and bridge the gap, we're going to be a really deep team. And we can be very, very good right away at the ASUN level with this group of girls as we add these other girls into the mix.
Well, you mentioned that some of the triathlon, a shout out to women's triathlon, had a fantastic opening weekend. But just to go back to what you were talking about a minute ago, adding all these new fresh faces in and maybe not necessarily knowing where they're going to come in to this year, but then like you said, very opening weekend, you ask a lot out of them. Can you talk about the makeup of this team, both young and, of course, returning folks as well, and how you expected them to respond this weekend?
I think the key, honestly, we learned this a lot with some of these new faces last year that came in and joined us during the spring track season, is there's some value in actually not having expectation. I'm not going to say low expectation, but not necessarily having expectation and knowing what's going to happen. Because they really get out there and they're almost running blind, and they put themselves in positions that they probably shouldn't be in. And then they find out they can do some amazing things.
Awesome.
And so we learned a lot last spring with a handful of them. And we've really tried to teach that to some of our newcomers and even some of our returners that struggle with the mental aspect of competing a little bit, because you got to stay focused and you get one crack at it. It might be a 15 to 30 minute race, but you only get one shot out there, and you got to make the most out of it. So if we can if we can ease the pressure of that expectation and just take what running's going to give you that day, we can find some really good results.
Well, and I know you, of course, are new to this program as well, coming in last year. And one thing that has always stuck out to me about this program is that preseason trip that you guys go on and kind of the bonding experience that you have. Can you talk a little bit about that and how does that help this team and how have you seen already kind of that paying dividends here for you, even in the opening weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have to tell it to everyone. There's nothing very attractive about having to wake up at 6:30 in the morning and go for a 10-mile, 15-mile run.
That's fair.
So for us to be able to bond really early on and be able to share that journey, share the miles, and realize that we are all the same, even though we have our differences. Know that we go through the same challenges, same struggles. Sometimes we lack motivation. For them to be able to bond over those things and realize that they're not the only ones in those situations makes it a lot easier to be positive, be excited to come to practice and work through those challenges together. That allows us to put in the miles and put in the level of work, make the commitments outside of practice that we are asking them to put in. So that trip really expedites that and really eliminates some of those growing pains, kind of sets the bar of what the program expectation is, what our values are, and really gets those newcomers on board real quick, which for this year, having such a new group of faces, we're still working on that as we add some kids in that arrived late. But the foundation was set when we were out there in Banner Elk and just cooking meals together, sitting around the campfire, putting some miles in, running up mountains, down mountains, through rivers, ice bathing in the rivers. I mean, it's a lot of fun and just allows us to share that bond of the journey that it is to be a long distance runner, just become a team that much quicker.
Well, I'll be honest with you, when you talk about the regimen that you guys have, it makes me out of breath just sitting here listening to it. So shout out to all your athletes. And you mentioned a little while ago the expectation side of things, and really, again, coming into this year, it's a new era. It's a new challenge, of course, for everybody you have. What are some of your goals for this year for this team, and what is it that you would like to see this team execute?
Well, being a runner, I mean, we're always looking at the long term. I mean, nothing that we ever get is nearsighted. If we set our goals too close, it's sometimes tough to get too excited about because it's usually too far away.
Sure.
So having a 4-year transition right now, it allows us to really get excited about the process, especially with such a young group. So we're working on the process of the day-to-day, the process of recovery, the process of racing, knowing that 3 to 4 years down the road, we're going to still have a large chunk of this group.
Yeah.
And I really believe with a lot of the group that we have that this can be a contender within the A-Sun. So we're looking to get some confidence, see some progress, keep progressing our own individual processes while progressing this team to very quickly have a force within the A-Sun in cross country, like Queens has been known for so long in Division II and the SAC. That it's been a force, and we really believe that we can quickly establish that in the A-Sun, hopefully quicker than on the track, but definitely in cross country.
Well, let me ask you this, and I think it's one thing that maybe people that aren't too familiar with cross country or just the running world in general, of course, running, you think about it and you're like, oh, well, that's a very individual sport. Well, cross country, track and field, it's a little bit different. Of course, you guys are out there competing, especially in the cross country world. Everybody's running at the same time. And, of course, yes, you want to see one of your runners come in first, but you don't have to have the top 3 finishers to be able to win a meet. So, can you talk a little bit about that team atmosphere and how it differs a little bit maybe from the other side of running when it comes to the track and field world?
Yeah, it's definitely a team sport. I mean, it's hard for people to sometimes wrap their head around that, but when you're having to do the level of work that we like to say that we're doing, some guys running 80, 90 miles a week, some of the girls running 50, 60, 70 miles a week, that every runner on the team has a role to contributing towards the team. That you might be the last guy on the roster, the last girl on the roster, but if you're showing up every day with a positive attitude and you're out there and you're grinding, you might be getting your butt kicked, you might be getting dropped.
Sure.
But if you're showing up each day and getting after it and giving your best, it makes those top guys, top girls' job that much easier to show up each day and do the work. You show up to race day and you're willing to kind of you're able to get more out of yourself because your team's out there with you, and that you've shared those miles and you've got an extra reason. When it's just you out there, you don't always have a reason to go out there and kind of push to the same level that you're willing to do if you have a team behind you, a team that's worked with you, that shared those miles. And so just that supportive environment really allows us to get the most out of ourselves on a day-to-day basis. And ultimately, at the end of the day, by pushing each other to be better, we make ourselves better. And at the end of the day, our team gets better.
Well, Coach, looking at your schedule, you guys have 4 regular season race days coming up left at the University of North Alabama Showcase coming up on the 16th, and you're back home for a couple at the Queen City Invite, and then, of course, the Royals Challenge before you head on to the A-Sun Conference. Looking at that schedule, what does your training regimen look like? How do you guys get ready? Of course, these races are fairly spread out, especially from the Royals Challenge. Looking at the A-Sun, you got about 20-plus days in there in terms of that. How do you guys stay focused, but more importantly, what does that training regimen look like?
So we live and breathe in the training world of things. So we are a sport that's really fortunate that we don't get penalized too much by our regular season performances. So
Sure.
What we're going to do right now is we got a young group and we got some work to do. So we need to spend some time in training. So we're really setting our sights right now on the Royals Challenge. That I told them today in practice before our workout that they're going to be tired for the next few weeks. We're going to go preview the course in Huntsville, Alabama, but they're going to have some big miles on their legs. We're going to come back and do a 12 to 16 mile long run the day afterwards. That we're not backing down. We're going to keep rolling through it, because if we want to make the steps that we need to take going forward, we need to key a little bit further down the road, put a really good block of training in right now. And that's the name of our sport. We still need to race. We need to know what that feels like on tired legs a little bit, and to know what it is to struggle. So we're going to feel that a little bit. But then by the time we get to October, they're going to get to pump the brakes a little bit, get to start feeling good. Hopefully have a good one at the Royals Challenge. Really be tapered down and ready to go and roll when we get to the A-Sun Championship and go to Huntsville for a second time.
Well, and Coach, before we let you go, I'd love to talk to you a little about kind of your own coaching journey. Of course, came here from West Texas A&M, a fantastic track and field cross-country school. And then, looking at this year now as a Division I head coach, what were some of your goals and expectations for yourself as a coach this year? Maybe not necessarily what the men and women are going to do on the course, but for you in general, what were some of your goals coming into this season?
Well, at the end of the day, we have to recruit a different student athlete than we recruited before. Not necessarily talent-wise, but it's a different age demographic. That people always give us a hard time on that within the SAC.
Sure.
But we have to recruit a different student athlete, and that's something that we have to figure out how to do here at Queens. And so that's one of the challenges that we have to face, and one of the things that we have to do if we are going to be successful at this level. I think we've done a good job with it this spring, kind of have an idea that we were going into that process. But from a recruiting standpoint, that's where we have to step our game up and solidify ourselves where we need to be in order to be a competitive year in, year out program here. But I think just our relationship that we have with Sonny and the triathlon program, that I think we're doing something pretty special. Yeah. That I don't know if anyone else in the country is doing something like what we're doing. And that relationship's been a great thing, and something I really value here during my short time here at Queens. So we're going to continue to maximize that and pretty much just continue to do what we do, because you know what? We're a sport that has competed pretty consistently against Division I competition. We're always at NC State. We're always going down to USC indoors. We see people at JDL indoors all the time. We go to Louisville every year or every other year. So we see Division I competition probably once or twice a month at least. Gotcha. On a regular basis when we were in Division II. So we are ready for this. The athletes that we have returning, that it's nothing new to us to face that kind of competition. It's just that now when we go to the A-Sun meet, we're going to have to step our game up. It's not the SAC anymore in the conference championship.
Yeah, that's true. And you alluded to a little bit there, that unique relationship that this cross-country program has with Sonny Dyer, and of course, a fantastic national champion triathlon program. And so, can you dive a little bit deeper into that just a little bit here, and just kind of talk about the idea of having both coaching staffs being able to work with these runners, and what kind of experience they get both at the cross-country level and then, of course, in the triathlon level.
I think one of the beautiful things about it is that there's no ego between me and Sonny. That I've seen this been attempted to be done at some other schools.
Sure.
And you see coaches that can't work together. You see coaches that can't work with individual athletes, because these athletes that come from different countries, different sports, they have such different backgrounds, and they're so set in their ways that they're afraid to modify, afraid to adapt. And I think that just through my 10 years of coaching, I think one of my strengths has been learning how to adapt to a lot of the athletes that we've worked with. And so that's really, really prepared me to work with Sonny and his triathlon squad. It's so unique and so many different backgrounds. And I feel like my coaching background, even though it's been very far from triathlon in the
Sure.
past.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
been a major learning experience for me and something I've been grateful for. But it's really made me capable of being able to work with Sonny, and Sonny's been awesome as well. He's a phenomenal recruiter.
Yeah.
I can't take credit for much of what we've done this spring. He had a lot of things established already in recruiting some of these girls and guys, but at the end of the day, like we're able to work together. He doesn't question what I want him to do from a running standpoint. I let him take them for the days that they need to be in the pool and on the bike. I don't question what they're doing. We make sure the kids understand the recovery that they need to do.
Sure.
They need to understand that's the foundation of what we're doing to get better. And so far, so good. It's been great so far.
Well, you mentioned that recovery is a big thing, and you talked about it also. Sometimes you got to run on those tired legs and stuff like that. But of course, with such a physically demanding sport, not just on the cross country side, but on the triathlon side, I have to imagine that's a different kind of juggling act that maybe you're used to. But at the same time, it seems like it's going to pay off for you.
Yeah, I came here and I was like, you guys are superhuman, but or you at least seem like we got to remember that you're not.
Yeah.
So I mean, if we can take care of our bodies and give it the rest and recovery that we need, they're working so hard. Whether you're talking about the triathlon kids or just our track and cross country distance athletes, they're all working really hard. But it matters more what they're doing in the other 21 hours a day that I don't have control over them. And
sure,
I think that's what's really special. We have some good upperclassmen, some great endurance athletes that understand what that means and are teaching the young athletes what that means and showing them what to do and embodying the values that are really important to me, that are important to having a successful program. So yes, we're going through a transition, and yes, this is going to be a little bit of a down year compared to where Queens has been in the past. But the foundation is going to get set. The relationships are going to be built to really set us up to be successful in the future.
And I think something that's always lost in translation, the idea of a student athlete. It's not just an athlete, and so not only do you juggle this crazy training regimen and unbelievable competition, but now you got to juggle being a student as well and a full-time. And I know you guys consistently have some of the top academics students in the athletic department itself. So, I have to imagine that dedication, both in the classroom and out of it, has to contribute to some of their success on the course as well.
I was writing a handful of recruiting emails before I came over here today, and I mean, just mentioning that we're looking for high-achieving student athletes that are looking for that personable, one-on-one experience, those internship experiences, those relationships with not only their coaches and their teammates, but their professors, that they're really going to be able to capitalize on while they're here at Queens. That's the why Queens. That's the experience that they're getting. We want people that embody that. We want people that value that, and that's why they're choosing here. And if they can represent all those things, I know that they're going to have all the right values that are going to really set us up to be successful from a training and ultimately competitiveness throughout our program.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you carving some time out and joining us. And of course, I'm excited to see where this program goes. I'm excited to see where all these programs go, but especially one that has really got so many young, talented athletes in it. So appreciate you joining us. Good luck with the rest of your season. We'll, of course, have you back on as we approach a couple of our events for you. But fantastic opening weekend and, of course, the start of something new.
Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. All right, Coach Jay Krolik, appreciate your time. We will take another break. When we get back, we'll head over to the soccer field, and we'll talk with women's soccer coach Shannon Neely-Knoll on the other side here on the Queens Coaches Corner. Don't go anywhere. We're back live from JJ's Red Hots right after this.
Once royalty carves out its place in history, it becomes an empire. And an empire needs room to grow. People call us an empire. We simply call ourselves Royals. Queens has been committed to excellence in everything we do. Now, we've leveled up. We're faster. We're stronger. We're better than ever. And now, we're ready for a new challenge. Our legacy has expanded. ASUN is now our domain, whether it's away or at home. On the diamond, even when no one is watching. Working, training, coaching. In the moments that define our empire, Royals are Division 1.
Life. It happens. And sometimes, all you can focus on is the pain. At Ortho Carolina, we want to restore you to a life without the pain. A life where the activities you pursue are no longer hindered. A life where you can freely enjoy, love, and participate in the lives of the people closest to you. Ortho Carolina, you improved.
Back here at JJ's Red Hots, coming to you live on the Queen Coach's Corner. Glad to have you along with us as we switch gears and head on over to the soccer pitch, and we will bring on for the second straight week women's head soccer coach Shannon Neely-Knoll. And first off, Coach Knoll, welcome back. Glad to have you along with us. A returning favorite, if you will.
I appreciate that. Anytime I can come over here and grab a meal before chatting with you, it's always a good day.
That's what I'm saying. You know, you come in here, grab a hot dog, and if you haven't made it down here yet, make sure you do. It's a fun atmosphere. We'll be up on the rooftop for hopefully a couple more of these. But last week, of course, you were helping us batten down the hatches and run down here and get set up. Luckily, we just went ahead and set up down here tonight. So, you know, it is what it is. But, let's talk about this past week since we last talked. Coming off a very good game against Morehead State. Ended up tying in that one 1-1. But second straight tie. So, start there. What kind of improvements have you seen now through this first couple of weeks with your team?
A lot. Every time we go into something, you can learn from it. And when you go up against an opponent, they're always trying to break you down and do something against what they've seen in film. So we came up against a team that had seen us play a couple times now. Sure. Yep. I think it was one of the first times we saw an opponent really game planning to our style of play. So us trying to figure out how to combat that, how to make adjustments after what we saw from them was great. And then if you followed the match, you saw that there was a little bit of chaos throughout it. Yes. And it was one of the first times that we saw our group have to manage a really difficult and tumultuous space in gameplay. And they did well. There's some things that, of course, we have to play upon. And it's always easy in retrospect to look back and say, shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? Because we were 56 seconds away from the win, and then we conceded a PK call. And end up with a tie that feels like a loss, but there's always great things to take from it. And those experiences, of course, help moving forward because we start ASUN play just a week from Thursday. I was going to say that's crazy enough in and of itself. But, just to go back to that game, and you mentioned kind of that chaos, and let's be honest, the further you go now in Division I and the further you go in the season when it's ASUN play, and then, of course, eventually with NCAA, you got to deal with that controlled chaos, right? And so, what sticks out to you most about this team so far this year that you can kind of hang your hat on and say, hey, we're learning stuff in and day out? I think the biggest pieces that you can take away is that it's a group that's learning, it's a group that's reflecting, and we haven't put all the pieces of the puzzle yet. Yeah, we've seen parts of it in every game, but we haven't hit that stride yet, and that's exciting because it's all about ASUN play. We have a fantastic final non-conference opponent coming up this weekend, but everything is about building up and us preparing ourselves because you want to be hitting that stride towards the end of season. Yeah, you get into conference play, you really start to hit some momentum, and then make a run at postseason because that's a lot of fun. When you look at what we've done so far, we're 5 games in, we've conceded 4 goals, and 2 of them have been PKs. So I think you have to hang your hat on a little bit of our defensive organization and prowess. We're working really hard. So it's a really fun group to work with, but we have a long way to go.
Well, we'll talk about that impressively good opponent you have coming up this weekend. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But just looking at this team and the way it's made up, going back to that Morehead State game, first off, a shout out to Nia Gaither.
Yes, first goal in D1 Queens history. Fantastic.
And who else but Nia Gaither to get it? Of course, a fantastic goal scorer. And I said at the top of the broadcast, probably one of many, I would imagine, for her.
Let's hope.
Yeah, amen. We'll hope on that one. But another one, of course, is Erica Turner. And, I've had the pleasure of watching her for a couple of seasons now. And we talk about the defensive back line and how stout they are and how good they are. But looking at what she does between the pipes on a daily basis and the kind of leadership that she has, and let's be honest, for a goalkeeper, you're a former goalkeeper in and of it yourself. What is it that stands out to you about her and her leadership on the field?
There's a conversation you hear in the soccer world that there are shot stoppers and then there are goalkeepers. She is a tried and true goalkeeper. She commands the field. She directs the space in front of her, not just the back line, but the midfield, the forwards. Like, she is somebody that controls the game. There's a
Yeah.
presence there that she brings, and I think that comes with a confidence that she instills in her team. And that speaks nothing to her technical skill in terms of the actual shot stopping, managing things played into a crowd. She's continuing to excel. I've worked with her for the last 8 months now, and I've been so impressed because she was already playing great soccer.
Yeah.
And her work ethic, commitment, and her drive to keep getting better. She loves the game. She wants to continue playing the game. I'm glad that she's going to be around here for a good while.
Yes.
But afterwards, I absolutely believe that she's going to be one of our first pro spots that really hits high because she has that aptitude and the want to be there.
Hey, that is some pretty good talk right there.
She's earned it. She absolutely has earned it.
Well, and you talk about earning. I'm literally looking at my notes right now. That's a full match for the 55th time in her career. She's played an entire match between the pipes, and whether she's standing back there and the offense is killing it, or whether she is that last line of defense, she's been fantastic. So we've talked about it. A couple of newcomers to this team, and then there's some folks that didn't get a chance to play last year, but now are back in. Hilda Svensson being one of those. She was a lot of fun to watch as a freshman. Didn't get to play last year, but now she's back in the fold. And then Savannah Stewart, a name that in the first couple of games we called her name a lot, and mainly on hustle plays. And I think that's the most important thing is, I always feel bad for defenders in the game of soccer, or midfielders even.
Yep.
Those stats don't show up, but sometimes they are the ones that control the pace of the game. So what have you seen so far through the midfield and the defense?
A lot. Like you said, I think the midfield, you always hear people talk about how it's the engine. It really can control things when you play the way that we're trying to develop. And those pieces of the puzzle, we have Olivia Bean, another freshman that's had great minutes in our midfield. And Savannah's given us great time as a center back and also as an outside back at time. And she's really came in flying. She was a great example of a freshman that came in just playing with full confidence and trusting herself, and she's made an immediate impact on our roster, on field and off. So it's been a lot of fun to see her play. Hilda's one that, of course, she didn't get a chance to compete last year, so she was really chomping at the bit to get going this year.
I can imagine, yeah.
And you can see from the game minutes how much she influences and how much consistency she brings to the field. We have a freshman class of 8, and 6 of them have seen field time in regular season competition so far, so you can see they're making big impacts right away.
Well, let me ask you this. Speaking of that freshman class, of course, first freshman class that you've been able to bring in, when you're out recruiting, what type of athletes are you looking for, and how does that process go in terms of having conversations, of course, tons and tons of times traveling around, seeing them play, but, what kind of athlete are you trying to bring into this program?
Oh, better and better. I've always worked on a philosophy of out recruiting my current roster, because if you're bringing in the same, you're never going to advance forward, because you have to start with your building blocks, and then while they're here, you help them get better. You help put them together in different ways, and you help them elevate themselves. But if you can start from a higher place, you have more room to go. So we're constantly, even before the transition, we were looking at people that we thought were, people might have considered were out of our playing weight.
Sure. Yeah.
And why not take a swing? Because you never know how you're going to land. Being in Charlotte, with the academics, with the beautiful campus that we have, there's no reason not to love it. We lost a recruit recently to a school that's in the mountains. I don't have mountains. So
that's fair. We have everything else.
I couldn't give her that, so I couldn't be mad at her for making that choice. But really, there's so much here for young people to take advantage of. Yeah. I think it's a destination location. We've always known it, and now with the D1 title, it just gets that much broader.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, you're in the fourth fastest growing city in America, but it almost feels more than that sometimes. But that's the thing. You are a couple hours from here, a couple hours from there. There's so much stuff to do, and it is that destination. Of course, now Queens trying to recruit that way of saying, hey, you can come and play in the city of Charlotte. And
even the parents get excited. They're like, I can come spend weekends here watching you play soccer. That's when you know you're in.
and nothing against the schools out in the middle of nowhere, but there's a few more hotel options to,
Lots of great food.
And for the kids, they don't have to worry about their parents having to crash with them.
No. They come and visit and they don't even see the players.
Yeah, exactly. So, looking ahead now on your schedule, we'll talk about Tennessee coming up here this weekend, but you mentioned it, ASUN play. We alluded a little bit to it last week, but I want to dive a little bit more into it and talk about the caliber of play that you're going to see at any level out of the ASUN and what kind of teams there are. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen so far, even in these short couple of games, not from your team, but I'm sure you guys are already looking ahead and scouting the ASUN, but what you've seen so far from the level of competition in the ASUN Conference?
Of course, it's great. It's really fun to start to watch these other teams. you're part of a new soccer family. And
Yeah.
until you're playing against them, you want them to have all the success in the world. And there's some programs that, just like us, put together schedules that are really going to challenge and battle test them before we get into that ASUN play. So getting to watch our new peers play against those big schools and the ones that are really going to stretch them and compete and get results and score and get shutouts and all those different things, it's just that much more exciting to be considered one of their peers.
Well, let me ask you this. You talked about it right there in terms of being able to be on the same pitch as some of these teams. And, that being said, you guys are out there practicing to be one of those teams. I mean, you want to be the ones that are, in that conversation. And of course, and for those that don't know this, one of the unique things about the ASUN conference, comparatively speaking to a lot of Division I conferences, when you're new to Division I, that usually means there's no championship play at all. Whereas the ASUN, you could still win the ASUN conference.
Yep.
You may not get that automatic bid, but you can still be an ASUN conference champion. So how big is that when you're looking ahead, kind of game planning here throughout and saying, hey guys, regardless of what happens on the non-conference side of things, we still have a chance to be conference champions.
Yeah. It's everything, especially for our seniors who have been through so much and they've committed so much to this program. I mean, like everybody, they went through the pandemic and the upheaval that invested. I am, for our 4th and 5th years, their 3rd head coach because of transition in the staff and great opportunities that the previous staff got. And they've stayed here. They love it. They're tried and true Royals, and they deserve everything we can give them this year. So a huge piece of it is, I always say it's not about them, but it's for them in the final season.
Sure.
And it's just a lot of fun to see them drive this final season that they get to compete. There's 8 that will be departing the program after this fall. So we really want to give them the best send-off that we can. And the thing that's wonderful that you alluded to is that we can do it while fighting for a title, even though we're in this transition space. And it's always fun when you have that carrot out in front of you.
Well, let me ask you this, and I wanted to ask you this last week, but I'll be quite honest with you, I forgot, so I apologize. But at the same time, talking about your own personal journey, you were a Big Ten goalkeeper at Ohio State. Then you went on to coach at several different places. Now you get the opportunity to take over this program as the head coach for the first time. What has this experience meant to you since taking over back in the spring? You came in and have really just hit the ground running. And of course, now here we are 5 games into this season already. But at the same time, what has this journey meant to you and how much fun are you having right now?
All the fun.
That's a good answer. That's
all
a good
the
answer.
Fun. No, fall is chaotic and fast and intense, but it's so fun.
Yeah.
And it's everything you spend the year preparing and developing for, and then you get it all at once. And it's drinking from a fire hose, but it is all the fun. And you get to be with your players more now than any other time during the year, and that's a big piece of it. And honestly, in terms of what the opportunity has meant for me, the thing that I constantly reflect back on is just how grateful I am. This is an extraordinary place. And of course, I'm biased. I decided to come here and I got the opportunity. But to work for someone like Sherry, to be a part of a department, we were showing a young lady around campus today, and everybody you run into just seems proud and happy about what they're doing while they're here. Whether it's a professor, we had somebody pop out of the international studies office and just spend 5 minutes chatting with this young lady that she had no ties to. It's just a really wonderful place to be. And again, to be a part of it and to have the responsibility of leading a piece of it is not something I take lightly, but it's something I'm really proud of that it's a part of my journey now.
Well, and that's something that's always stuck out to me about this place is I still see and meet new people on a daily basis. It's as small of a school as it is, one of, if not the smallest Division I programs in the nation, but it is that family atmosphere and what that can build. And I have to imagine, and this is a perfect example, you showing around a recruit today and somebody popping out, that leaves a lasting impression. And so I have to imagine as a head coach, it's a nice thing to have that in terms of touring folks around. And you're like, hey, I got to do my job in terms of recruiting, but this place kind of recruits for itself as well.
No, absolutely. And even thinking back to January when I was here visiting on my interview, I had a little bit of downtime before that last meeting. And I was just kind of roaming around campus and, as silly as it sounds, I called my mom and I was like, this place is wonderful. I feel great here. And it is. It's all about that feeling. Like we have the academics, you have the city, you have the food, you have the people. But when you leave with the feeling, you just know, it's the place that you're supposed to be. And it was luckily, the chance that I got, and I got the offer, and it was a big step and a big challenge for my family because of the situation we're in and our efforts to kind of live our combined life.
Sure.
But it's been wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you. When I came here in February 2021, it was the same thing. I mean, I took the job before I actually came and looked at it, but I took the job.
So were the COVID years.
Yeah, exactly right. My wife and I flew here and toured the campus, looked around, enjoyed every bit of it, and that was the thing. I walked into the Levine Center and said, "Wow."
Yeah.
And my wife looked at me and said, "This is Division II?" And I was like, "Yeah, well, of course not for long, but at the same time, it is an amazing place, and of course, we're more than happy to have you along with us." And now, looking ahead at this week, and we alluded to it a little bit, a preseason top 15 team in the nation, and the University of Tennessee. They've hit a bit of a struggle out of the gate, 1-2-1, but you look at the caliber of teams that they played that in 1-2-1. You're like, okay, I get it.
Exactly.
So looking at this, you have a top 15 team in the nation, the Division I level. What does the preparation for this game look like? And of course, you can't look too far ahead. You got to take one game at a time. But now that you have, I guess, somewhat of a week to be able to look ahead of it, what's kind of preparations gone into this game?
The great thing is it's really similar to every other game. It's just a different opponent, and you tactically approach it differently than somebody else because they are a different team. There's a reason we went to the Division I level, and it's to be on a bigger stage and a bigger platform. So I'll never shy away from putting our team on that biggest platform. I think it's really exciting. I think the team's excited about it. Obviously it's one that I think instantly families were circling on their schedule because there is a difference when you get to play a Power 5 school and you get to go and experience what that level is like and play against young ladies who are currently a part of national team programs and competing against the UNCs and the Dukes and challenging themselves in a bigger and broader way, and to see where we're at compared to them and what we can do against them. It's a great challenge. And as we said before, it's about preparing, learning lessons, putting ourselves in situations that are going to help us be better at ASUN. And what a better way to lead into that conference play.
And I think you look at it, and I don't think people truly understand what a game like this, win or lose, can do for a program, especially a program that is so new to the Division I level. It's okay, well, this team came from Division I. Of course, this is a team that's coming off a program record in wins with 16, and so no slouch of a program by any means. But then all of a sudden, it's like, they came in and hung with Tennessee or beat Tennessee or whatever. And you look at these games, I'm calling right now, the upset win of the year. I'm just, I'm going to
appreciate it.
I'm going to step out on that ledge, and I'm okay with it. And, don't at me. But at the same time, I have to imagine for you as a head coach and really as a team, you guys are looking at this of what an opportunity it actually is.
And that's everything. It's all about the opportunity. And honestly, when I called up, I'm a long-time acquaintances with one of their coaches. That's kind of how the opportunity came to be. And when I found out that they were in need of a game, I didn't hesitate. I gave them a call and I said, we'd love to fill that slot. Let us know if we can make it work. Obviously we'll come to you because you hit the nail right on the head. It is a massive opportunity for us, especially in this first year, to get the green light to go and play a team like that. Because they don't have to when it's non-conference. They can say no. And we were really fortunate that they said yes, because I think it's just going to be a fantastic night. Afternoon.
Hey, whatever it is going to be a great day. That's
day.
For sure. Yeah. And that's the thing, for these, the women that are playing in this game for Queens, just the experience to say, I mean, we played the University of Tennessee, and this is a national program that is always in the top 25, is always competing in the SEC of all conferences. And so, it really is a cool opportunity. I'm so excited for you guys that you guys get to go out there. Wish I was going, but
I gave you the invite.
I know. But, men's rugby's got a game against Penn State, so we'll talk more about that with Coach McKenzie. But at the same time, Coach, I appreciate you joining us. And, of course, best of luck coming up this weekend. And what an opportunity for this program, not just this weekend, but, of course, this season in general. Fantastic to talk to you again. I always enjoy it. And best of luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it. See you tomorrow night.
We'll take another break when we get back, as she just alluded to. We got men's soccer coming your way tomorrow night live on ESPN+. We'll talk more about that as we wrap up the show. But before we do that, we're going to switch gears and talk a little men's rugby. I'll be joined by 2019 national champion coach Frank McKenzie and, of course, the head coach of our men's rugby program. We'll be back on the Queen Sports Network right after this.
Every journey has a starting point. Each student has a moment when talent and passion meet opportunity. At the intersection of challenge and support, self-discovery fuels breakthroughs, and leaders emerge prepared for what's next. I grew up loving music. It possesses this very real, very unique power for connection and healing. And my journey as a music therapist took shape here.
I discovered the pool offered a more level playing field and the chance to push my limits. At Queens, there's so much opportunity, and our potential for greatness accelerates with every step of our collective journey.
I've always had a knack for chemistry, and that talent has magnified since I got here, rippling out in new directions. I'm not afraid to take risks. I believe challenges make us stronger, and innovation only comes when we're willing to lean into the unknown.
I'm still not sure what the future holds, but whatever it is, Queens has prepared me for it.
My professors push me in the classroom and believe in my abilities.
My coaches, professors, all of us, we're one team, one family.
Here, my voice is heard. I'm given the freedom to be myself and charter new opportunities for change.
Here, strength comes from within.
Practice makes perfect.
And curiosity knows no bounds.
I believe Queens graduates will create a better tomorrow. Where we go next? That's up to us.
Back here live at JJ's Red Hots on this Tuesday night in Charlotte, North Carolina. Glad to have you along with us here on the Queens Coaches Corner. As a part of our Queens Sports Network initiative, we head on into this brand new era, brand new year. And one of those guys that's ushering in a brand new era this season is, of course, our head coach of our men's rugby program, the 2019 national champion. And that, of course, is Frank McKenzie. And Coach McKenzie, appreciate you carving some time out. I know you just came over from practice, but at least you got a little hot dog before you got to come on, right?
True. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, we had a training session today. Obviously, a little hot out there, so a little sweaty, but good to be here.
That's fair. Yeah, you know, we originally were gonna set up top. It was supposed to rain. Looks like it's held off, but at least we're in the air conditioning. So I agree. It's that just post Labor Day heat and humidity that I think I'm at this point. I'm like, okay, I can get rid of the humidity. You can go the other direction now. Let's talk about this past weekend. You guys opened it up with a win against Wheeling Jesuit right here at home, a 22-19 hard-fought battle. Just first and foremost, what did you see watching your team take the field for the first competition of the year? Of course, you have all summer long where you're training, trying to get to that point, but it always is kind of one of those things that doesn't matter how ready you think you are, the second you hit that field, you take a look at it. What did you see from the guys?
Yeah, a couple things. So I think for me as a coach, as you develop and try to get better as a coach, first thing I try to say is, okay, let's not look at the negatives. Right?
Sure.
Let's not look at all the negatives. Let's look at the positives. So the biggest positive and something we've got to work on a team is being able to close games out. And we haven't been good at closing games out. So this weekend we go up 15-0, right? We score three unconverted tries, and we got to 15-0. And we moved some freshmen on the field. And the reason why is to get them some game time, to see what they have, to put them in that type of environment, put them under that type of pressure, and see how they handle it. And Wheeling Jesuit came roaring back. like roaring to where I'm like,
You're looking at it going, okay,
yeah,
all right. Well.
Yeah, and I'm like, and nothing against, what Wheeling Jesuit's trying to do. We're trying to get some more players time. And I told my coaches, like, this game is more a developmental game. We want to see where we're at.
Sure.
But when you get to that point where, there's a chance you might lose, all of a sudden you start thinking, was that the right idea? So the biggest takeaway for me is that we were able to close the game out. So I think we looked and our captain ran through and intercepted a pass and went and scored under the post. So it was an easy kick. And we finished and closed the game out. And I talked about that theme after the game. There was a ton of stuff we needed to work on.
Sure, absolutely. Naturally, it's the first game of the year. Of course, there's always going to be something.
Yeah, a bunch of things I'm not happy about. But the theme of closing the game out, being under that pressure of saying, hey, this is either going to win or lose, and we've got to reach into the fire and pull the game out. And that's what I'm the most happiest about. That's the one theme I want them to leave with on Saturday.
Well, just out of curiosity, just to, I guess, taking a step back, thinking about this summer, what does the training schedule look like for you guys in the off season? How does that come about? I mean, I'm sure it ratchets up as you get closer to the season, but what does your summer look like typically in terms of the way you guys train?
Yeah, good question. So usually what you'll see with some of the high-level programs is they'll be doing sevens, so 7-a-side rugby.
Okay.
You have your 15-a-side rugby, you have your 7-a-side rugby. So 7-a-side rugby, you'll see a lot of that, and some athletes will go do that during the summer. So we have an off-season lifting program and an off-season kind of conditioning program that we send out to the actual athletes. So for them, the other thing is playbook, right? So one of the things in rugby is we try to raise what we call their Rugby IQ. So going in, tearing into the playbook, looking at it, and then what I try to do is make the playbook a little more difficult each year because the current players that come back, we want them to still make sure they're studying. The freshmen, it's like drinking out of a fire hose. It's like, oh my God, because it's the terminology,
of course,
it's the attack patterns, it's the defense, it's all the stuff we're looking to do. So for us, once they leave campus, a lot of your guys are going to leave campus right around that first week in May. And then from there, they probably get like a week off, and then they get into the lifting program and the conditioning program that they're doing off season.
Sure. Just to touch on that, I know you talked about the drinking from a fire hose thing, and I think what people fail to realize is some of the guys that you recruit, they've played rugby here and there, but it hasn't been their main focus. It's been something else. And I know, overseas, it's a little bit different. Rugby's a little bit bigger of a money-making sport, if you will. But I have to imagine it's always gratifying for a coach to see these guys just get it. And however long that may take, I'm sure for some it takes a little bit longer than others, but it's got to be nice to see them kind of buy in and say, listen, whether I truly understand what I'm looking at right now or not, I'm willing to learn.
Yeah, I think what you said is interesting. So if you're an international player, a lot of those players are playing rugby at age 5.
Okay.
And that's one of the big issues that we run in the United States. Like we don't have young players playing at 5. And if they are, it's not enough of them. So the second thing you have with U.S. players is that they're practicing 2 days a week.
Gotcha.
So we train 5 days a week. They lift 2 days a week with their strength coach. They lift off season 3 days a week. They have mandatory study halls. So, I mean, it's very regimented from what we do.
Yeah.
So for the U.S. players, what's interesting is one of our players, Doyle Hedgepeth. Doyle had been kind of a quasi-starter first year. His next year, he was on the bench. So if you see any of the footage from the national championship games, he was coming off the bench.
Okay.
And then he went from there to his junior year. He became a force. His senior year, he became a dominant player.
Yeah.
It ended up being a National College Rugby All-American, became a U.S. under-23 national team player, and then was selected in the Major League Rugby draft for 10 overall. But for Doyle, he was an American rugby player and American football. The switch did not flip for him until year 3.
Gotcha.
So we try to categorize our players. We have starters that we know are going to be starters. We have developmental players that we know are going to take 2 years.
Okay.
Right? And then we have these guys that are kind of in that gray area where they can start one weekend or they may be back as developmental.
Gotcha.
So we try to get some type of category for each of those players. So the developmental players, we just look and say, okay, it's like marinating chicken, marinating steak.
Yeah.
It's going to take a little while for them.
Sure.
Doyle is a prime example that if you're patient, you'll have guys that will come out and they'll get better and better and better every year.
Well, and you mentioned Doyle, like you said, he's a prime example of that. But also, I mean, over the last few years, you guys have had some guys go in that Major League Rugby draft. Yeah. And not just that, but playing for under 23 national teams. I mean, this is for a small school in Charlotte, North Carolina. I mean, you guys have had some unbelievable success. The 2019 Division II National Championship. And then, just looking at that, what has that done for you? I mean, of course, yes, it helps to build this program and everything, but as a head coach, that just has to be so satisfying for you to see these guys just go out there and find something that they love to do and excel at it.
Yeah. My assistant coach says it all the time. Like that's their safe place. That's their safe haven. But it gets to a point though where we're talking to the training staff.
Yeah.
And when guys have injuries or they're held out because of something, we start looking at their mental health because we know rugby is their place. It's interesting for us, like on our team, we've been around for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I think roughly in March, I started the team, and we've had an incredible run, which is a huge credit to the coaches, huge credit to our trainer, huge coach to our players, and the parents that send them to school. So in 5 years, as you talk about some of the success we've had here, we've had 3 players that were selected in the Major League Rugby draft. We've had 3 players that were high school All-American or collegiate All-Americans, and that's tough for a lot of colleges to have those kind of numbers. But I have to say there's some luck. There's some guys that bought into it. We ended up with a national championship, like we talked about. And my goal when I started this was to be a top 10 team in the country in overall. And there's roughly about 500 college men's rugby teams.
Okay.
And the goal was to be a top 10. That was, for me, always the goal, to be a top 10. So we're moving towards that. The D1 rankings actually came out right as I was sitting here. So
okay,
we're trying to move towards that. Penn State, that we play this weekend, is number 10 overall in the country. So
gotcha.
That'll be a good test for us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we'll talk more about that game coming up here in a second. But, looking at this season and going into the year, what are some of the things coming into this season different than others that you're most excited for? I mean, what is it that you've been so eager to see out there on the field?
So this is our toughest schedule. We're going to play 3 teams that are in the top 10.
Okay.
We're going to play West Point, which is the defending D1 national champion.
Yep.
We're going to
play them last year too.
Yep. It's actually kind of weird. We probably didn't publicize this a lot. We played them 3 times in a 14-month span.
Wow.
One because of COVID, and they were looking for players.
Gotcha.
The second is because we were willing to go up there, so they came back down. And as I was talking to their coach, I was like, "Hey, I'd like to have a home and away where we play you guys, twice a year." And the coach goes, "Well, and basically what he was saying is, we'll see how this game goes, and if you guys were any good,
okay, I got you. If you're a test, then maybe."
Yeah, he was so him and on. And finally, I said, "Let's see how the game goes.
Yeah,
and if it goes well, we'll look to play again."
That's funny.
So, pretty funny. But what I'm super excited, we play 3 teams in the top.
I mean, and first off, that's credit to you guys. I mean, you go out there and you backed up what you said you were going to back up, and so therefore, I have to imagine just from a sheer man-to-man aspect, that's just respect at that point. I'm just saying, okay, yeah, this is a pretty good team, and this is a pretty good test.
Yeah, I think the boys came out, and I think as you play more and more teams of that caliber, I don't think you get nervous to play in big games.
Sure.
Because you're like, I've played some of the best teams in the country.
Yeah.
So the deal is to push these players into those environments. So, and as you push them into those environments, last year we went to the Naval Academy. Naval Academy had packed stands. Fans are yelling and screaming.
Sure.
It's a hostile environment. I'm trying to yell out some information. They're mocking me. But my coaches were getting frustrated. I said, no, we want this type of environment.
Yeah.
So our players are used to it. But I'm super excited about the schedule. I think talent-wise, I always hate saying this, but I think we probably have the most talent that we've ever had.
Awesome.
Now, talent doesn't win games necessarily.
Sure, yeah.
Talent, you don't know is how it's going to gel together. But I think this is probably our most talented team, but it's definitely our toughest schedule.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I mean, that's not a bad combination to have going into the new year, right? I mean, I say that now, and of course I say that as an outsider, but at the same time, I'm excited to see what you guys do. And like you said, talking about that schedule coming up on Saturday, Penn State, top 10 team coming to town. You talked about West Point. What are some of the other big games on the schedule that you guys are looking forward to?
Yeah, Life University is going to be a big game. I don't think we have any easy games on our schedule. But what's interesting to me, when you play West Point, when you play Naval Academy, we don't play Naval Academy this year, but when you play Penn State, when you play Life, these are teams that if you mess around, they will drop 100 points on you. Like they will. The first time I went to go play Life, I was like, man, this is, I'm walking across this bridge to get to their field, and that's their number one sport is rugby. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, we've got to go out and play. And we ended up playing phenomenally well. It was 10-8 with 57 minutes gone in the game. Our boys kept playing, but we didn't finish. And we ended up losing, I think it was like 30-10. But scary teams. I mean, scary. Yeah. I see coaches all the time going, man, we're playing XYZ, and they're hyping it up, and then you don't see any other posts because they've got probably 80-plus drops.
Sure.
Because those teams are that good.
Yeah.
They're that skilled. And if you come to their house or you're going to play them, they want to make sure that, hey, we're going to get better. So they're looking to drop a big score on you if you can't handle it.
Well, and for those of you listening home that may not know about Life University, they are pretty good at what they do when it comes to rugby. That's for sure. And just Google them, and you'll understand what we're talking about there. One thing I did want to touch on, and unfortunately I didn't get a chance to really talk to you much about it last year, was, of course, the film that came out, the Scrum Film. Shout out to Thomas Morgan, great guy. Got to have a conversation with him, but I never got to talk to you about it. It talks about not just you, but this program, and more importantly, kind of the values and the discipline that you guys instill into these young men that come into this program. First off, what was that experience like? Because I know you got to travel around a little bit, go to a few premieres, and of course that's always fun. But what did it teach you, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I never in my life dreamed that I'd be in a movie. Like I tell my parents.
I don't think very many people do.
I'm like, this is crazy. So my buddy is a very good film maker. He's done 16 documentary films. He's won a ton of awards. And he came to me one day and said, hey, I want to make a movie about you. Now, first of all, I'm a rugby coach.
Sure.
Right? I'm a rugby coach. I probably dress 50 to 60% of my life in sportswear that has Queen's Rugby on there. So I think to myself, what is different about my story and the player's story? And I always think that coaches see life the same way I do, and I don't know if that's necessarily the case. But what's interesting, though, is as we started filming the movie and we started getting into the story about some of the players. So one of the big things is I'm a big fan of the underdog.
Yeah.
And those are people that historically may not have gone to college. Their families may not have gone to college, but they want to give college a try, and they want to try to finish. So my goal is not really to win games. And I love saying that because people always go, oh, gosh, what is this guy doing? It's about getting them across the stage. So I look for three things in players: good citizens, good in the classroom, and good on the field. So when we started filming the movie, a lot of this started coming out, and these heartwarming stories where he would go to these kids' houses, their homes, and we have some kids that are very their families are low income.
Sure.
But you can't tell because we're a brotherhood.
Yeah.
So the rich guys, the poor guys, they're all the same. They look the same gear, the whole 9 yards. And I learned a lot about my players. So when the filming ended, we went to a couple premieres. The best was we went to Southern California, and it was a red carpet event.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to wear a tuxedo.
The whole 9 yards.
Yeah,
I like that.
The whole 9 yards. So my girlfriend got to dress up. We got to walk on the red carpet, and it was my parents were there. I had a bunch of family from the West Coast that was there. It was
That's awesome.
Crazy, phenomenal thing. But what's ended up happening, and I probably haven't talked about this a lot, but a film studio has actually hired a writer to do a scripted movie. So I'm waiting to see what's going to happen with that.
That's awesome.
And they're looking to do a scripted movie. So what came out of that is I became the first African American college men's rugby coach to win a national championship.
Yeah.
On that day, that December in 2019. I didn't really know that, but that came out, and then just all the great stories of all the players. So it's been phenomenal. I'm still pinch myself, still can't believe it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's pretty crazy.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure you could watch that movie about 1,000 times and you'd still be like, wait a minute, how was this made? But, I do want to touch on that. I mean, I've had the fortune of talking to some of your players, both current and guys that have graduated over the last couple of years. And that's what's always impressed me is the idea of it doesn't matter where they've come from in life. It's making them good young men and valuable members of the community, whether it's here or wherever they're from, whatever that might be. And I credit to you, credit to your staff. Some of the nicest, most knowledgeable guys I've ever talked to, some of the easiest interviews I've ever had as well. But at the same time, I just, you guys have done so much for these guys. And of course, you can just tell that they reciprocate that twofold in terms of trying to make sure you understand that, that you've given them an opportunity and they're not going to let go of that opportunity.
Yeah. The one word we focus on and talk a lot is humility, right? Being humble.
Yeah.
And
which is a lost art nowadays.
It is. I want my players opening doors for women. I want them, sitting at the front of the class. I want them to be good citizens, good people out in the community. Because for me, what's important is that they're good dads, they're future CEOs.
Sure.
They're good people in life. Anybody can win games. I know coaches that are not good coaches that win games. Anybody can do that. For me, it's more about putting out people in society that are going to make society better. And I think the other thing too, if you look at the team, the team is very diverse, and that's a huge thing. And I think a problem in America today is that you have people that don't have diverse friends.
Yeah.
They went to a school, everybody looked the same. They played a sport where everybody looked the same. They go to work and everybody looks the same. Their church, everybody looks the same. So how are you ever going to learn about other types of people?
I agree.
Well, if you look at our circle of our guys, they are different from different parts of the U.S., from different parts of the world. They're different colors. But the one thing they do is they care about those guys. They know the guys that have started had put blood, sweat, and tears to get on that field.
Sure.
And they're truly, truly brothers. And to me, as a coach, like that's better than getting a paycheck. I mean, that to me, to see different color arms interlocked, and guys going out there to try to win, like that is bigger than a paycheck. Now, don't tell the AD that because he might want to renegotiate.
Yeah, we can edit this part out. We are live, but nobody record that. We'll edit that out. Well, Frank, let me ask you this. I mean, where does that want for you come from? I mean, where does that derive from in you in terms of wanting to better these young men and see them excel in life, and of course, like you said, more importantly, see them walk across that stage and just be valuable members of this community.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from my parents. Like my mom was a educator. She received her PhD in education. And she became an assistant superintendent. My dad retired as a commander. So if you think about the Navy, admiral's the top, captain's second, commander's third. My dad enlisted in the Navy at 17 and got his college degree while he was in the Navy.
Awesome.
So both overachievers, and to me, both my heroes. But they taught me to be kind to people. Right. And you think about it as your 70s, 80s, 90s, like sometimes people of color aren't always treated nicely.
Sure.
And especially in companies for them to try to move up. But they never came home and said, hey, forget these people or these people. They always said, hey, man, love everybody.
Yeah.
And it's tough to do. But for me, and the other part that hit me was when I played rugby, I rarely saw anybody of color. That's just not African-American people. That's Asian. That's Latino.
Sure, yeah.
I rarely saw them on the rugby field. And I also said to myself, I want to see a team that looks diverse. Like that to me makes me happy.
That's awesome.
To me, when guys are all running and hugging each other and they're all from different backgrounds, that to me, and once again, that's better than getting a paycheck.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this in terms of your own playing career and everything. What got you into the sport of rugby? How did that come about? What made you jump into this sport, comparatively speaking, to any other sport out there?
Oh, Mike, this is going to be funny. This is the funny part.
I'm all right with it.
So I was a
sorry about that.
Career soccer player.
Okay.
And very good soccer player. And I was supposed to go play rugby. Supposed to play soccer at Belmont Abbey.
Okay.
And I showed up out of shape. We had our preseason. Don't ever tell my players. Like, Coach didn't work out. I don't have to work out.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, you were out of shape. I mean, I can be too, right?
So I showed up, and the coach said, hey, you're out of shape. Come back next year for the team. So I met these guys that played rugby, and I ended up starting to play rugby, and I played through my senior year, and I became the captain and the president. Went and played men's league. The men's league was Division II, then it went Division I, then it was called Super League.
Okay.
Super League were the top 16 teams in the country.
Gotcha.
It was a semi-pro. You had to pay some of your expenses.
Sure.
But you had top coaches, you had trainers. But that experience of playing Super League, playing against some of the best players in the country, playing against guys you can see they're going to be in the World Cup, was incredible. And I didn't always so the 23, you have 15 starters and you have 8 subs.
Okay.
I didn't always make that 23.
Gotcha.
But going out in that type of environment and seeing what it took to start or to get in the 23 as that reserve, that taught me how to be a player that was going to put a lot in.
Sure.
And I take a lot of those principles from all those experiences, and that's what I try to bring into the program we have now.
Well, and just before we let you go, in terms of obviously going from that journey of a player and into the coaching world, what made you want to become a coach? What is it about coaching that just sticks out to you? And obviously you've made a pretty successful career out of it. So
yeah, that's another good story. So our coach, when we were in the Super League, made us sign an agreement that we're going to go volunteer time to teams. And I, at the time, was like, I don't know where I'm going to go. So I found Myers Park High School.
Okay.
And I came out and I said, hey, I need to volunteer time. And they said, okay. And I started watching how they're running. I was like, ooh, there's some things they could change. I was also getting towards the tail end of my playing career. I also knew that my body wasn't going to be able to do it more, to be able to continue. What I ended up happening, I had this whole brain and whole thought, and I realized that I am as passionate as a coach as I was a player. So I get up Saturday mornings. I can't sleep Friday night. Most of our games are Saturdays. Can't sleep Friday night. Get up Saturday. I'm ornery Saturday morning. I can't find things. I'm mad. It was just like I was as a player. But I realized that I still get that competition. I still get fed that competitiveness from coaching. And that's when I realized I could retire. And I never felt a void when I retired because I was already starting to coach. And then I went into full-time coaching and coached Myers Park High School. And then I ended up coaching some more and more and more. And now, fast forward, I'm here. But I get up. It doesn't matter who we're playing. Saturday morning, I still have butterflies. I'm still up there. The sun's not up yet. I'm still pacing, writing notes down. So, that's how I got that's how I ended up retiring.
I love it. I mean, and it comes full circle. You started Myers Park High School, and here you are, still in Myers Park, but coaching a Division I rugby program. So, Coach, before we let you go, like we said, we talked about it. Penn State coming up on Saturday. We'll have that game live on ESPN Plus. Excited to obviously not just have it on ESPN Plus, but to give you guys that platform to kind of elevate it. But what can we expect in that match? I mean, what is it about that Penn State team that sticks out to you, and how do you guys think you'll compete?
Yeah, so game 10 a.m. Game's 10 a.m. Saturday. Penn State's very big and very physical.
Okay.
Very methodical in their attack pattern. Very disciplined. Very good coaching staff. Long history of their program. We're a little different in terms we play fast.
Okay.
We're in the South. We have we play on turf, so we look to go fast. They're looking to go a little slower and look to try to knock us over. So it's going to be a very physical match. We're going to have to make our tackles and bring them to the ground.
Gotcha.
And we're going to have to make sure with what they bring with size, we're going to have to bring that with speed. So as a fan, I can't wait for the matchup. We actually played them in December. I don't want to tell you the result then, but we played them in December. So we're super excited for the matchup. We're super excited to host them. And I think bringing highly competitive games to the Queen City is a huge thing for me, a huge passion.
Yeah.
And this is the number 10 team. So we had West Point was number 1. We have Penn State come in as number 10. And then Life will be down here, which is like number 6, number 7 in the country. So having these high competitive games, like that's super exciting for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And trust me, as a broadcaster, I'm pretty excited myself. I'm excited to get out there. It's funny because, I've been talking about this to multiple people, but I said one thing that I've been really wanting to do since I got here is broadcast rugby for you guys. But something has always happened where either the game didn't happen or something else came up, whatever it might be. But regardless, I'll be there 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. I don't care what happens. I'll walk. That's fine. But it's going to be a fun game. And like I say, I'm excited to showcase that. Just to touch on one thing.
Sure.
You mentioned it just a minute ago. How big of a difference is the game between grass and turf? I mean, is it a different style mentality? Like you said, Penn State trying to play a little bit slower, but a little bit more methodical. You guys try to play a little bit faster. Is there that much of a difference?
Yeah, I think if you look, so the thing that always worries me is weather, right? If it's raining, if it's windy, like bigger teams are going to have an advantage because they've got to keep the ball in tighter. For us with turf, I think you can look to go faster.
Gotcha.
I think also the ball's going to bounce differently. I think you're going to be faster running on turf than you are grass.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a good surface for us.
Sure.
We have a wide field. We're excited about that. We played them back in the fall. The weather was actually good in December up north,
which is a rarity.
Huge. We were prepping for it to be cold. We played at night.
Sure.
We were prepping for cold. We were prepping for bad conditions, but the conditions were actually pretty good. This time it should be in the mid 80s. The turf is going to make it, in my estimation, probably 7 to 8 degrees hotter.
Sure.
So we're hoping that the heat is going to be an advantage for us. I talked to the players about that. So I think your question about turf versus grass, I think turf is probably going to be a better surface for us because we can go faster. But, all that stuff plays into it. But at the end of the day, we got to be there and show up on Saturday morning.
Well, I'll be there, and I'm ready for you guys to show up too. So
good deal. Super excited.
All right, Coach. Appreciate you joining us. Always a pleasure. Again, we'll have you back on here maybe next week. Talk about a big win over a top 10 team. You never know.
Please do. I'd love to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Coach. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, we'll take one more break. When we get back, we'll wrap things up here on the Queen's Coaches Corner right after this on the Queen Sports Network.
Once royalty carves out its place in history, it becomes an empire. And an empire needs room to grow. People call us an empire. We simply call ourselves Royals. Queens has been committed to excellence in everything we do. Now, we've leveled up. We're faster. We're stronger. We're better than ever. And now, we're ready for a new challenge. Our legacy has expanded. ASUN is now our domain, whether it's away or at home. On the diamond, even when no one is watching. Working, training, coaching. In the moments that define our empire, Royals are Division 1.
Back here on the Queen's Coaches Corner to wrap things up. We appreciate you joining us here again on another Tuesday night. We'll be back here each and every Tuesday, live from JJ's Red Hots. We'll be up on the rooftop one of these weeks, I promise you. Make sure you get down here. If you're not up on the rooftop, whether inside or outside, get down here, enjoy JJ's Red Hots. It's a fantastic meal. Of course, always a top 10 restaurant in the state of North Carolina, but just in general, it's a lot of fun. Of course, shout out to John Luther, owner of JJ's Red Hots, for allowing us to crash his pad here and enjoy and talk a little Queen sports. We appreciate you joining us all night long. Thank you to all the coaches that stopped by, and of course, we'll have them on back next week, and of course, looking ahead throughout the rest of this season. Make sure you go on all of our social media platforms, follow us using @QU Sports Network, and of course, @Queens Athletics for all the freshest, newest content that Queens Athletics has to offer, all in one place. Hit us up and check us out. ESPN Plus starts tomorrow for Queens Athletics. 7 p.m. kickoff for men's soccer against Gardner-Webb to usher in yet another new era in this hashtag Be the First Year here for Queens Athletics in Division 1. Go out and enjoy the rest of your night, folks. And as always, go Royals.